We are super excited for this afternoon's alumni conversation. We've had so much fun over the course of the last several months doing these, and we hope you all have enjoyed them. This afternoon, we are joined by some fantastic alums. I can't wait for you to meet them and to talk a little bit about their career pathways in the areas of communications, marketing, media, all the good communication things. So I will turn it over to Zane, and he's going to make an announcement before we get started.
Hey everyone, so my name is Zane, and you guys might have noticed me working with Miss Avery and the Office of Alumni Affairs over the past 2 years as an intern. So I'm graduating this year, and sort of as my last responsibility, I'm looking for my replacements. And so in terms of what it is I actually do, me and Miss Avery put together a little job description along with a Google form where you can express interest in being one of the 2 interns we're looking for next year. I'll send that out today after the session. I've really enjoyed working with Miss Avery. She's a really awesome person, and it's been really fun getting to know all our alumni and being able to organize these calls, among other things. It's just also really nice to not have to worry about midterms or finals for one block of my schedule and to have something that isn't too academic. So just the only requirements, if you're interested in this, is next year you have to be a junior or a senior. You have to be pretty good at writing and researching, and you should be comfortable and confident interacting with adults and professionals, either in person or over email. I really encourage you guys to fill out the Google form and to apply. And with that, back to Miss Davis or Miss Avery.
That's great. Thank you, Zane. Thank you. All right. Well, as Ms. Davis mentioned this morning, or this afternoon rather, we're joined by several alumni in the professional industry of marketing. I'm going to ask you guys to just unmute yourselves, and if you would, alums, introduce yourself, maybe share what graduating class you were in and what you're doing presently, as well as share, I don't know, a favorite tradition at Walker, a favorite teacher, a favorite class, just something that sort of stands out positively from your time at school. Jen, do you want to go first?
Oh, sure. My name is Jen McAdam Bodonote. I am from the class of 1988. Currently, I own my own marketing and PR firm called Bounce Path Marketing. We specialize in commercial real estate. We consider ourselves story fanatics, and I can tell you more about that later. I think I had 2 favorite teachers. One, math, Mrs. Lang, because it was pretty easy for me. But the person who I really enjoy, and thanks to Rebecca, still enjoy today, is Dixie Bowden. I had her for English 3 years, so from sophomore to senior. So that's my little Walker memory.
Thank you. Stella, will you go next?
Sure. My name is Stella Lee, maiden name Stella Yun. I graduated Walker in the class of 2002. My favorite Walker classes, I have a few. I enjoyed physics with Mrs. Rhodes, English with Mr. Golden, and French with Miss May. I don't know if you remember, but you look exactly the same, and it's so crazy to see after so many years. But in terms of what I do professionally, I work for a German manufacturer of luxury designer fittings for kitchens, bath, and spas. It's called Dornbrock, and it's based, the US satellite is based in Duluth, Georgia, but the headquarters office is in Germany.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Allison, will you go next?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Allison. I graduated class of 2017, and then my brother Sean graduated after me, and now my sister Ava is there. But I currently am a senior at Vanderbilt University, so I'm about to graduate in a couple months, which is fun. And I'm currently a digital and communications intern at this nonprofit called the Center for the Developing Adolescent. So I help with social media and stuff like that. And got to give a shout out to Miss Johnson. So nice to see you. And my favorite classes were probably yearbook with Miss Branham, and then also my class with Miss Krejci.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Who wants to go next? Let's see, Alexandra.
Yeah, I can go. Hey guys, I'm Alexandra Tabal. I graduated from Walker in 2015. Hi, Ms. Johnson. It's good to see you. But I currently work as a brand advocate analyst at Home Depot here in Atlanta. And I really just work with suppliers to optimize their online presence on .com. We're really trying to create an interconnected experience between the stores and the online, and really, bring the digital presence to Home Depot, especially the last year with everything going online. It's been really interesting to see and to work on the online side of marketing, because that's really kind of where the world is going. Oh, and my favorite class at Walker was AP World History with Dr. Schaefer. It was really great because she encouraged us to have some really interesting conversations about what was going on in history, and not just learn what was happening and what happened over the course of time, but really dive in deep and see like why that was happening. So, yeah.
Thank you. Kayla, we'll if you'll go next, and then we'll finish with Richard.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Kayla Hall. I graduated in 2014. I currently work at Zeno Group, which is a global PR firm, and I specialize in the healthcare practice, so working on a global contact lens manufacturer. And it's been interesting to start in a new job in the pandemic, but I've learned a lot. So, kind of navigating that virtual working has been interesting, but I love my job. I'm very grateful to have it. And I will echo Stella and say that Miss May, her French class was life-changing. And it's so good to see her on this screen. And I am so happy to be with some of the fellow Walker people on this call. It's nice to see some familiar faces, especially after this crazy year.
Thank you. And Richard, our lone representative, if you'll close us out with introductions, that'd be great.
Sure, I'm Richard Parker, class of 1988. My favorite teachers at Walker were Mr. Peters in history and Madam Hilton in French. Did a wonderful job in those areas with me. I am currently a public affairs officer in the U.S. Navy Reserve. I don't have a civilian job, so I make myself available to the Navy whenever they need me, and they need me on a regular basis. Currently, I'm with a unit called Navy Public Affairs Support Element, which basically goes in and deploys wherever people are needed around the world. And I've seen a lot of interesting places in my career in the Navy. Prior to joining in 2013, I was a professor. I taught marketing, advertising, and communications for about 15 years. My last position was as chair of the Department of Marketing at High Point University. So I've seen marketing and communications from both the theory and the practice side of things. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. My first question to you guys, and I'll just throw it out to anybody who wants to jump in and answer. But when we were doing some research for the position, we really came to understand that communications as an industry includes a lot. There seems like there are a ton of career paths in that field. So before we get started, just for anyone who's kind of listening out, for something that they may specifically be interested in, would you give me a sense of what your, in your mind, what communications careers are there? I'll just let y'all jump up and handle that.
Well, I'll start. I don't know if I have the complete answer, but to your point, Rebecca, the way I look at it is communication is storytelling. I think I mentioned earlier, we consider ourselves story fanatics, and there's so many ways you can tell a story. And each one of those ways to tell a story is essentially a job or a career that you can dive into. So, there's managers, associates, you can go up all the lines, but there's also so many, it's more like the channels. So there's digital. When I started in marketing back in the early 90s, there was no digital world. So you faxed a press release to somebody you wanted to get to cover your story. I don't even have a fax machine anymore, but so I think the evolution of communication, particularly over the past 3 years, is very interesting. Is a direct correlation to the evolution of what communication careers are, and it's not just advertising and PR. With my degree is advertising and PR. Well, now that's so dated, to be honest with you. So it's really any way you can tell a story.
Great, that's great.
It's changing every day.
Yeah. You guys that are currently, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to add to that, that, Jen, it's so true what you said. I think the field has evolved so much. I think even when I first started, I looked at a lot of jobs that were very heavy writing or content heavy about actually communicating. But, what I do now is, much more strategic in nature, and there's a big digital component involved in analytics. So I think just, when you're 18 or you're still in high school, it's not easy to know these things ahead of time, how many different directions your career can go into. And I think one of the most important things that, I could relay in terms of advice is that, become a subject matter expert in something, because there are so many different areas where you can kind of find what you're good at. So it might not be communications per se, maybe it'll be SEO, maybe you'll become an SEO whiz or a social media whiz, or maybe you will oversee paid advertising campaigns, which is very technical in nature. So I think, the career has definitely evolved, and there are so many different career paths that you can take.
I can add one thing to that, is that something that is just communicating the benefit of our products to the customer. And so I work kind of more heavily on the e-commerce marketing side. So we're trying to communicate what is the benefit of the product to the consumer. And there's a lot of different factors and ways that you have to consider. You have to consider what is the evolving way that people want to be communicated with. It's evolved, like you said, Jen, it's evolved from letters and faxing to emails, social media, tweets, Instagram ads. And there's so many different levels of communication and how you're communicating that product or that service that you're trying to sell to your audience. And then there's also the communication that you have to have with partners and marketing, and just different ways that you have to target someone. So it's very interesting. A lot of communication in the marketing side is just figuring out how you're going to convince that person to buy your product. How are you going to relate to them on, an emotional level to make them really see that value that your product is giving?
Good point.
And I'll add something else to follow up with that. A couple of things people don't think about when they're considering communication things are planning and evaluation. You really can't be effective in how you communicate through your execution if you really haven't planned it out. Who's going to be your audience? What's going to be your message? How are the channels are going to be used in order to get that message to the right audience? And then once you've done everything, what about evaluating? How well did it work out? One of the things that we did after NORAD Track Santa, which I was the deputy program manager for 2 years, was we had to run metrics to determine how effective our communications were, not just among news media, which, we did a number of TV interviews on the 24th of December and the days leading up to, but how effective were our social media channels? What was our growth in there? Did it reach the people we wanted to reach? How much of that was shared? And how much of the message of what NORAD does, rather than just tracking Santa on the 24th of December, but of the actual NORAD mission of keeping North America safe, were people picking up from that? So there's a lot of things that go on in the planning and evaluation side. So you can think about execution in many different ways, but if you don't think about planning, you don't think about evaluation, you're not getting the whole story.
And to Richard's point, that's the only way we evolve, is to evaluate the end result so we can learn from it and become better. It's one of the key reasons that communications has evolved so much over the past 3 decades.
So I'm hearing a lot of variety, which I think is great for students to understand today. There can be data analysis, there can be sales, there can be events, there can be strategic planning, there can be just
copywriting, English,
just a variety of paths into this industry. Thank you.
Designers, graphic designers, that's a whole nother thing. Photographers, videographers.
Yeah, lots of different paths. Great, thank you guys so much. Okay, next question. Sort of a follow-up. Jen mentioned about I think Jen mentioned it. I apologize if it was someone else, about becoming a subject expert. Who was that? Was that? Who was that? That
Stella.
was Stella. I'm sorry. Stella mentioned becoming a subject expert. Is that how you ended up where you are today? Or did you sort of know that you wanted to follow this path? How did you just briefly end up where you are today? Kayla, will you start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career at a smaller agency in New York, and it specialized in consumer brands. And I always thought I wanted to go into entertainment because I love pop culture, I love music. And so I thought having consumer with influencer strategy could be a bridge for that. And it turned out I didn't really like consumer as much as I thought I did, or as much as I thought I would. And so I was looking for just a new opportunity. I wanted to go somewhere bigger. And so I think something important to say for my experience was, keep tabs on what you enjoy in your work, whether it's the environment, clients, the day-to-day tasks, for the future, because that's kind of how I was able to start looking for my next move. And I got in touch with my now VP at this agency at Zeno Group, and he mentioned that it was healthcare. And I've never been a science person or math. That's all my brother. And when I heard healthcare, I was like, this is way out of my league. But in my experiences and with my clients, it's very much social media and writing. And I get to bring in a little of pop culture and history, which I love. So I think, I encourage anyone who's, trying to figure out what exactly their subject space is to keep their options open, but also keep tabs on what your interests are. Because I like writing, I like history, and I'm able to bring that into some of the stuff I'm doing now with healthcare, even though it was not, I think, top of mind. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else want to jump in on that one?
I'll say I got to just thinking about where I am. Obviously, I don't have a full-time job yet, but I think a lot about yearbook in high school. When I had signed up to do it, it was just kind of like an on-the-whim thing. And then I became completely obsessed with it and loved it, and it became one of my passions. And so I just thought about what were the things that I liked about it. Okay, I liked writing articles. I liked taking pictures. I liked interviewing people. So that led me to be like, okay, what career can I have that incorporates these things that I already love so much? And even with my major, when picking a major in college, it can be very intimidating. And I just tried to be true to myself and pick something that I genuinely cared about, which for me was sociology. And so then I was like, okay, what draws me to sociology? What makes me care about it? And for me, it was the social advocacy part and learning about other people, which I took that to be like, okay, maybe I can do something in nonprofit work. And so what I do right now is a combination of all of these things that I've fallen in love with over time. So if I were to give advice to people, it would be to take some time, as much as it can feel like you have to do a certain thing or follow a certain path, like really, we all owe it to ourselves to find what we really, really love and what we're really, really passionate about, and start there when trying to figure out what to do next.
Great advice. Great advice.
And I can kind of piggyback off of that. So I think, especially for the seniors going into college, you're not going to know what you want to do. I did 5 internships throughout my college career. I did internships in finance. I did internships in HR. I did internships everywhere. And I never really figured out exactly, like, they didn't hit the nail on the head. And that's why I didn't intern at Home Depot before I started working here. But I knew what I wanted in a company. I knew what I wanted in a job because I took the factors that I liked from each internship, factors that I liked from classes in college, factors that I liked from clubs that I'd done in college. And then also, just company culture. And that's way down the line. Y'all probably aren't even thinking about that. But like company culture factors that I know I needed to prioritize. And that's what all led me to my position in my job where I work today. Love it. It's a great company and I'm very happy. But I think definitely also take what, when you get into college, especially seniors, look into what you're interested in and join those clubs. It doesn't matter. Like you can join them and you can be a part of them for 6 months. If you hate them, you can quit them. Love it, then it'll make your college experience great. And that could lead into what you want to do in your career, just like Allison said. So just don't be afraid to take those chances in college, because you're never going to get a chance to do it again, but it's not going to hurt you. So that's what I have to say.
So while we are talking about college, and I'm going to stick with our younger alums, although I feel welcome to jump in, but since you guys are fairly recently, either Allison's still there or recently graduated, let me ask you this. What do you think you took with you from Walker that was really key in helping you be successful in college?
I can start us off. I know that my writing skills I took from Walker were so far above most of my peers. Y'all really set us up very well for just writing, those research papers that you really hate to write. Yeah, I was like blown away by the fact that I knew how to write those very, very well. I also was confident in the things that just the experiences that I had at Walker and just the education that I had really prepared me very well. Also just I felt very comfortable taking on leadership positions in different clubs and things like that, because I had that opportunity and experiences at Walker. So I think those were just two things that really prepared me well for college.
Thank you.
I would echo the writing skills.
Yeah.
Hands down, even the threat when Miss Bowden said, if you have a comma splice, you get an F automatically. And I think I avoided the F. But I mean, I just look at even some of my peers today who, have 20 plus years in professional and they don't know how to write. So I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that as well. The writing skills you guys are getting at Walker are phenomenal. They are absolutely outstanding, and they will do you very well in college once you get there. The first class I taught when I was a doctoral student at the University of Alabama was on media writing. And the simple fact of the matter was I am confident that any Walker student in that class would have passed with no problems. Whereas I had people that were in those classes that couldn't pass because of misspelled words, punctuation, grammar, everything else. And to speak to the quality of the writing over the years, when I was chair at marketing at High Point, one of my advisees was a Walker grad, and she was a better writer than any other person in my class. So take those skills and use them well.
Keep writing, everybody. Yeah.
I'll jump in really quickly before I have to leave for a client call, of course.
Yeah.
But I'll say the connections at Walker are incredible. I think one, you have the community of people in your class, and then you also have just the mentorship among the professors. And I got my job because of staying in touch with a Walker grad. And so I think as cliche as it may sound, networking is always important.
Mm-hmm.
Just knowing that this person may work at this company, they had, they graduated 2 years after you. I think those are really important. So that being said, if anyone has any questions after I leave, feel free to reach out to Miss Avery for any help I can offer.
Thank you,
Sorry
Kayla.
to jump so quickly. No problem.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. All right, you guys, thank you for answering that. I'd like now to just take a minute. Jen, you mentioned that you started your own PR marketing firm. Can you talk to us about what led you down that path or that journey, and what that experience has been like, as opposed to, and I'm going to ask Richard and Sarah the same question, as opposed to working for a large organization or a corporate environment, or even a nonprofit?
Well, so after school, I was employed as a communications specialist. What does that mean? We've already explored that already. But and then I went to work for an agency. And it appeared, if you looked at my early career, that about every 2 years I got really bored and I needed something different. The agency gave me a glimpse at, what it's like to work with a variety of different clients. So that kind of checked that boredom box off. But I didn't like, and the agency, I worked at Ketchum here in Atlanta, and it was a very grueling life. It's not I'm not saying all agencies are like this, but it was at that point in time, MCI was our client, a couple other banking institutions were our clients, and they were just highly demanding. And at that I knew that wasn't a life for me. I hired a freelancer to help me with a project and went to lunch with her one day and said, how the heck do you do this on your own? And you don't have to go to a job every day, go to an office every day. And she really inspired me to do it. That was back in 1997. And back in 1997, everyone thought I was nuts, including my parents. My God, we spent so much money on education and you're going off on your own. And I was like, what's the worst that could happen is I could go find another job. But it didn't. I didn't have to do that. And I've learned really quickly how to be an entrepreneur, how to go be scrappy and go find your kill, actually, not to be so blunt, to feed yourself. It takes a lot of determination, it takes a lot of humility, it takes a lot of gratitude. But it's also extremely, extremely rewarding. I mean, I now have a team of like 20. This is our 20th year as Bounce Path. I was on my own before I started Bounce Path, and I now have a business partner, and we do things together, and it's just been extremely rewarding. Did I answer your question at all?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Because I think it does, we are actually, our next Zoom in April is going to be with entrepreneurs. And I think it does take a different kind of, I don't know, model. It's a different kind of model to go out on your own. Richard, will you speak a little bit to, I can't imagine any bigger organization than the United States government or the United States military. Will you speak to what that environment is like?
Yeah, certainly. With the government, it's a little different. We have to coordinate a lot of our communication efforts with different agencies and whatnot. The nice thing is that the community and we practice what we call public affairs in government rather than public relations, and that's because there was a law passed in the 1930s that said the government can't practice public relations. Well, public affairs is basically just the same thing. It's semantics. So the public affairs community in the government, it's fairly small. So, I mean, people who are everywhere. Like, for instance, my boss at NORAD was my boss in Italy when I was stationed with US 6th Fleet and lived in Italy in 2017. And my mentor is now the public affairs officer for the Secretary of Defense. He was my boss at Pearl Harbor. So we have to coordinate our messages, and we have to do that up through a chain and through a series of channels where, for instance, during the COVID outbreak, we had messages at U.S. Northern Command that we wanted to put out, but we had to coordinate those at the Pentagon before we put them out. And if we had, like U.S. Army North wanted to do something about the field hospitals, they would have to talk to us at U.S. Northern Command before we do that. The key is alignment when you're talking to about government public affairs. And everyone has to be aligned, and they have to be sharing their messages, and they have to kind of have all the same messages coming from different agencies. So that's why you have a single spokesperson, for instance, because with one spokesperson, you're having all the messages coming through one channel rather than the potential for those messages getting crossed if you have different people talking about different things. So frequently, I would be sitting at my desk and I would get a phone call from, say, CNN or from Fox News or someone like that wanting to ask me a question about something. Well, I had the answer, but I wasn't authorized to give the answer. So I'd have to tell them, you need to call so-and-so at the Pentagon, and they will tell you, what you need to know. And that way, we were all keeping on the same page. So the key in a big organization like that is coordination. And so everyone needs to be coordinated. You need to have good working relationships with the people. You need to know who the people are, and you just need to be sure you're building those relationships and you're doing your reading, your homework, and your understanding how the pathways work. That's kind of the basic Cliff Notes overview of it. Rebecca, you're muted.
Thank you, Richard. I'd like at this time to introduce Sarah. She has jumped on, and Sarah is a graduate with the class of, I think it's 96, and is currently the VP of Corporate Communications with IBM. Sarah, in case you didn't pick it up, we're talking about large corporations. IBM, another large corporation. Would you have anything to add to Richard's assessment of what that experience is like?
No, I mean, hi, thank you. And I apologize for being a little bit late. That's the other joy of large corporations in corporate America. You completely lose control of your calendar. Look, I've done a range of different sizes, right? I've worked at small companies, I've worked at big companies. IBM is about 350,000 people. So it's quite significant and quite global. And there's puts and takes, right? I mean, you have all of the advantages of working with people literally around the planet, and you get to learn a lot, and you get to experience a lot of different cultures and ways of working. The downside is that there is a lot of bureaucracy, right? To some of the previous speakers' points. I mean, you have to learn to navigate it. You have to learn who is who in the zoo, and you have to learn, and you develop this over time, like what politics are you willing to play, and what games do you not want to play? Where do you just say, I opt out of that? But over time, I would say, now at the point where I am in my career, I appreciate working for larger organizations versus smaller, because of the resources that you generally have, and also you're 9 times out of 10 dealing with, let's call it more adult management, right? So I've been in technology for a long time, and I've worked for some crazy companies too, which make for probably better WebExes and Zooms and more fun party conversation. But I kind of like working for adults now.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, everyone. Zane, we have a question that was submitted by our students. Would you throw it out to the panel?
So I feel like we covered both of the questions that were submitted pretty well. They were just how have developments in social media shaped the way you do your work? And Jen talked about how it's been evolving. And then the other question was also covered by what roles make up a communications department. You guys kind of talked about the different options you have: photographer, videographer, all these different varieties. So
thank you. Thank you. I was particular, anybody want to speak to that, that particular, I'm imagining that we have a number of students today who are very interested in social media as a career field. So just to expand a little bit more on how social media has changed marketing, does anybody want to add to our earlier comments in that arena? No, we covered it.
I would just say that, social media came about more so from, just a consumer social friend being social standpoint, building relationships. And, then it's evolved into, the business world, whether it be B2B or B2C, business to business or business to consumer. And I would just say, like with any other type of conversation, even though its origins are just friend to friend, chit chat type of communication, from a business standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, it needs to have a strategy. It still needs to have a concerted message. It still needs to be delivered to who you want to hear that message. And it still needs to speak in the language of that audience. So it's not just about hopping on and, I read, I'm feeling like this today, and let me just talk about this online. It needs to be a concerted effort. So all of our clients have a more month to month, because it needs to be very immediate, but a month to month content calendar. And that's part of strategy and figuring out which of all the social media channels is the right one to talk to who you want to talk to and deliver the message. Obviously, if it, is a longer message, you can't just throw it up on Instagram and put a couple, it needs to be in the appropriate medium.
Thank you. Thank you for that added content.
And I'll follow that up by saying it's important to understand the difference in the social media channels. For instance, how the messages you put out on LinkedIn are not going to be the same messages you put out on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. And also remember that some social media channels aren't going to be with us forever. Who uses MySpace these days? So, I mean, we need to think about the fact that social media is going to continue to evolve. And one of the important things is to stay ahead of that trend as it does evolve.
Watch who's buying who.
Yeah. Thank you.
Also, I just want to add that if you're ever interested in a career in social media, I think it's such a niche field. I talked earlier about being a subject matter expert in a certain area within marketing and communications. And I think because it is evolving so quickly, I think just being ahead and being familiar with all the different apps and all of the different functionality and understanding that algorithms are changing, and we're constantly trying to guess, the strategies of these social media companies and how to really make best use of different channels. There's also a huge advertising component to social media that once you're actually on the business side of things, you'll realize that it's not just about communicating and posting pretty pictures, but it's utilizing those channels to actually advertise and target to different consumers and audiences. So there's a whole other side to social media that I discovered more recently in my career, and I think it's very fascinating. And there's just so much more to do than just what you see when you log into your Instagram account.
Yeah, I'll just to build on what Stella was saying, like if you're thinking about how do I build a career and you want it to be in social media, like creativity is important, storytelling is important. I'm just going to be really blunt. I have 100 people come to me saying that they can be creative and tell a story. I'll have one who could explain an audience and a distribution and a paid strategy that is quantifiable, right? And so if you don't embrace sort of the, frankly, math sort of side of it, you're not getting the entire equation, and it is going to be a detriment to your career.
Thank you guys so much. We are almost out of time. We've got just 1 minute left. Anybody, I'll throw this out. What would you say to yourself as a senior if you could go back?
I would say that it is okay to be scared. When I was getting ready to go to college, and even now looking for a job, it is nerve-wracking and it is scary. And I was always under the impression that everybody around me had it figured out, but everybody is learning on the spot as well. And you all have really awesome people at Walker that you can lean on. When I was freaking out about college, I leaned on Miss Johnson, and she was completely there for me. My friends and I all still talk to Miss Arjona today, even though we've been out of high school for some years now. So it's okay to be scared, and you do have a support system around you to help you through all of these big changes in your life.
Oh, Allison, that is such a good place to end. I just want to thank you guys again for your time, and also just remind our students, you're going to all be alumni one day, and this is an important network that you will be a part of. So stay connected, stay in touch with your classmates and with your fellow alums, and keep in touch when you guys get out there in the real world. Thank you all so very much. Your time is so appreciated. I don't want to go over, and our students need to head out to their next classes, but we appreciate you and we thank you, and we wish you all just a great rest of your week. Everybody have a good day.